Hey friends, Rob Phoenix Powwow guy here. Hope you're all doing well. Um, it's a semi-beautiful day here in South Central Pennsylvania, a mix of sun and clouds, temperatures in the 50s, but it's pretty breezy out, so it feels a little bit colder. It's all right. It's whatever. It's early March. Um, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you guys was um, I had a question about whether Powwowers, brokers, um, call on ancestral spirits in our work. The short answer is no. It's not a thing. Um, Generally speaking, we do not have ancestor veneration kind of written into or encoded in the actual practice of Pennsylvania German powwow. Um, Powwow is very simplistic. It's just pretty much a no frills tradition of just healing prescriptions at its most basic foundation. Um, but but there's always a but. If we go further into the community of the practitioners of folk magic, Pennsylvania German folk magic practitioners, um, there are some folks that I've met over the years who they're known for powwowing, but then also add a little bit of ceremonial magic into their work, which these are the folks that, in my view, fall into the realm of a Hexenmeister, um, which is, of course, a powwower who takes it a step further and engages in ceremonial magic and such, mainly in response to negative witchery and hardcore protective magics and such with. So there have, well, there still are a few out there that, they're a powwower in their kitchen by day and a hexameister in their barn at night. As some folks say, they're Christians who know more than the Lord's Prayer. Um, so yes, there are some, but there are some practitioners of Pennsylvania German folk magic that do work with various spirits, such as um, angels, planetary spirits, astrological spirits, um, even things that could fall into the realm of like a demonic spirit, um, that sort of thing. So while we don't have ancestor veneration, because that would fall more into a person's personal religious choice, um, depending on what church you're a part of, you might I don't even know if Catholics do that. I don't know if Catholics have ancestor veneration. They have saint veneration. Um, and I think it might be more of a cultural thing. Like I think if there were modern day maybe people from like Mexico or something that culturally ancestor veneration was a part of their lives. And if they were here in Pennsylvania and were practicing Pennsylvania German folk magic, they may have that ancestral veneration as a part of their cultural religion, their cultural identity, but not so much as a matter of course within their powwowing. Um, but again, along with the Hexameister stuff, see, because in order to understand why we might as powwowers choose to work like ceremonial magic and call on angelic entities and demonic entities and other spiritual kind of entities to help us with work, and also utilize things like the seals of Solomon, talismanic work, and that sort of thing. We have to go back to our roots. Erroneously in the 1990s, when everybody was able to publish all these books, these new age books and such. Erroneously, some authors had linked Pennsylvania German folk magic with ancient Germanic paganism, and that's wrong. That's not true at all. The connection from powwow if we're going backwards to Germany and German-speaking countries, leads us to European uh, cunning practices. And then those, of course, trace the origins back to medieval Catholicism. And that, of course, blended with magic can trace its roots all the way back to like the like Gnosticism and the Coptic Christianity. Of course, Egypt, you know. So there you go. So if we go back to our, like in Europe, the cunning craft, the cunning men and women, they were doing all that we are doing as powwowers and hexameisters in this day and age. But they were more often than not more learned individuals, more scholarly individuals, and they were monetizing their work. And these were like among the intellectuals that would meet in like smoke-filled chambers and discuss the magic of the day. And then eventually they started blending like theosophy and such into their magical practices. And when the waves of immigration happened, these were generally the less academic folks. These were generally the poorer people, the more simpler folks who came here to have farmland and such. And so they may not have had the skills to read or the finances to collect books and such. So only bits and pieces of the cunning craft and such and grimoire traditions filtered into those communities and into those people's lives. And those were in the form of, you know, just stuff they needed to do every day. Simple healing charms, simple rituals and prescriptions for keeping their livestock healthy and their crops safe and that sort of thing. So powwow is like the poor man's cunning craft. It's a really good way of looking at it. Like, yeah, I can't think of a better analogy. Powwow is the poor man's cunning craft. It's cunning craft for the regular folk. And so that being said, those of us with a more bend toward ritualistic magic and ceremonial magic and higher forms of magic, we can still find that within the powwow tradition, but we have to like kind of go back even further into our cunning roots and tap into what they were doing then, because those are our magical ancestors. I mean, that's where we came from. Um, so stuff like working with spirits. You know, that's a pretty vague and sort of nebulous term, but, and for everybody, that means something different. Um, it's possible you might find, um, you might find your everyday run-of-the-mill powwower, your simple charmer or folk healer, may have some inclination to working with a spiritual entity of some sort, but that's pretty rare. That's very rare. Um, Generally speaking, that type of stuff is done by the hexameisters. So if you do meet a powwower in there and they say that they have a spiritual guide or a spiritual helper that assists them in their powwowing, it's a pretty good bet that there's a lot more to that powwower than the simple country folk healer that you see before you. Um, and we are out there, just few and far between, especially those of us keeping the tradition what it always has been, without muddying the waters with all this false academia that's come out in the last 30 years, and mixed with fantasy, also with all the nonsense that the Germanic occultism that like came out during the Third Reich with all that nationalism and purity of race and, you know, the runes having esoteric meanings, which was not historically true. And that all blended into modern neo-paganism and such. It's a big mess. And Powwow has no connection to that at all. So anybody who writes that it doesn't have a good grasp on history and they have poor academia as their source. So yeah, if you want to add as a power, if you want to add some of that stuff, my recommendation is to look to like David Rankin or I can't think of some of the scholars right now, but look for the cunning craft, the good cunning, like the cunning man's grimoire. That's a good one. it all escapes me right now, but yeah, look there. Don't look to any of the modern translations of Cunningcraft because that's all been muddied and screwed up. So you're going to want to look for the scholarly work, and it's out there. It's out there. But yeah, that's where you'll get a good idea of what modern powwowers and powwowers of old, but also the cunning men and women were doing with in regards to working with angels, demons, spirits, that sort of thing. Very little. I mean, ancestral veneration has just, as far as I have ever found, and I've done tons and tons of research for 20 some years on this. Um, I've not found ancestral veneration to, in any way, shape, or form, be a part of either Cunningcraft or Powwow or Hexen, Hexen work or Hexenmeister work. Um, Anybody who says it's a part, that's their personal addition to it. That's their cultural belief or their religious belief. But that is not, as a rule, a part of the tradition itself. Um, and insofar as, well, I guess that's really it. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because sometimes it's best for me to answer a question is to just put like a general primer out there. Like, here's where I'm coming from. So take this information in the context of everything else I've said, and you'll understand that certain things just are not a part of the tradition. And certain practices like ancestor veneration, that seems foreign to me. I don't care for that. I remember learning about that years ago and even trying to set up an ancestral altar, but it just did not feel good to me. And as much as I would love to talk to my grandparents again, um, there comes a point where you have to let go and they'll always be a part of you. But in my personal opinion and experience, it's best to let that go. I wanted so badly to communicate with my father after he died because I had so much I needed to say to him and ask him and learn from him. And I reached out to somebody. How do I do this? I need it. I'm so desperate. And it was in a state of grief, I guess you could say. And they gave me some pointers and I started trying it and I just didn't feel right with it. And it didn't make me comfortable. Over the years, any ancestors that I may have missed or grieved over or whatever, I may have dreamt about them. I still sometimes dream about my dog Frodo from years ago. Um, and I wake up feeling good, like, yeah, I had a little visit from Frodo or whoever. Uh, but I leave it at that. Um, just because I think the dead are best left where they are. That being said, there is at least one ritual that I'm aware of, where after a person dies, you have to go basically the next day, and then over their fresh grave, you draw a circle, you stand in that circle, and you command that spirit in the name of uh, an angelic being. You command that the spirit of that deceased person to do your bidding. Um, that seems a little dark for me. That I would consider to be what's called hexerai. Um, you start getting into like necromancy and stuff. I'm just not going to go there. Uh, but anyway, it's my rambling for today. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, I mean, put them down. Comments always help get the channel spread to more people. So you can, I hate saying this stuff, but press the like button. Well, not that it's a button, but whatever like is. If you want to subscribe, because I just make videos whenever I have time or if something inspires me or whatever, I have something to say. Um, I promise I won't bother you. I'll never ask for any money. I don't sell anything. But subscribing does help get more people to see the videos, and I think it's important to put proper information out there. I did share a video that this morning. He is a pagan person, Arith Harger. I think that's how you say his name. He's very academic, very scholarly, and he's constantly putting, when he discovers like the historical roots of something, he puts it out there. And so he did this great video about the actual origin of the runes as esoteric symbols of magic and such. Um, you should check it out. If you have any questions or doubts about the history of Germanic folk magic, which does not, again, have anything to do with Pennsylvania German folk magic, nothing to do with Brauerei, nothing to do with powwowing, hexameister work. That has nothing and no connection to ancient Germanic anything. But you'll find that modern neo-pagan Germanic folk magic also has no connection to anything ancient either. So, all right, that being said, God bless you guys. Love you all very much. Have a good day, and we'll talk again soon.